So we've got a 2016 F350 here. It's got some sort of a coolant leak going on. I've got the pressure tester on it out there. See if we can get any seepage or drips or anything out of it. And the other thing is the auto hubs are not working. The four-wheel drive's working. You can lock them in manually, so that all that crap's working on the transfer case. Probably this solenoid, but I want to scan it and see if it might have a circuit code for that solenoid. If this is attempt number 3 with a scan tool. Don't have much patience this morning. Oh my god. Okay, come on, you got a little bit further to go there. Just do it. Just do it. Come on, you can do it. I wonder what do we have for lunch today? Nothing. Blue ice. Okay, get out of the way. No, I have the latest software. There is no more software for this machine. 2021, that's it. Okay, forward. Let's auto ID it. Yep. Okay, code scan. I think that will do all the modules. I'm not seeing any codes anywhere. Not even in the heating. None in the radio. No codes present. Okay, well that was a great waste of time. So now what we need to do is we need to I think the auto lock solenoid is on the back of the, or the hub lock solenoid is on the back of the coolant bottle. So we probably, well, let's look at some data. Let's see, what was that under? Get out of here. Tire pressure, transfer case. We'll look at a little data here. Data. Yeah, keys on. Continue, I don't care. So, neutral, continuous vacuum. Hub lock solenoid is off. Rear locking differential. Open. Neutral, false. Okay, so this is the one we want to look at right here. Let's put that sucker in 4i and see if it goes on. Yeah, it goes on. So I'm going to assume, I mean, we could go out there and check the voltage on it, but and then put a vacuum gauge on it. Let me go get a vacuum gauge and we'll see if we're sending vacuum through it. We should have enough vacuum in the storage canister to pull some vacuum, so hang on just a second. So we got our vacuum gauge hooked up and we're sending vacuum through the solenoid, so that's working. So we either have a leak in the line down there or we have a hub seal leaking. So what we're going to need to do is go on the other side. I believe there's some kind of a check valve in there. Go on the other side of the check valve, put the smoke machine on there, and we'll go see how much smoke we have coming out of the hub seals. and that kind of stuff. So that's the easiest way to do that. The other thing is, if I suspected the solenoid, you know, if nothing was happening there, I would of course check my power and a ground. There's only 2 wires on the solenoid, got a ground and got a power, and I would check both of those, but there's no need to check those because obviously it's working. Our problem is much lower than the solenoid. So they put a hub on this thing, and I have a seal driver to put these seals on there without screwing them up too bad. So I'm assuming they probably, in their shop, they don't have one. I mean, I'm just assuming. They're kind of difficult to put on without messing them up. You got to be pretty careful. So we may be tearing the hub off of this thing and doing a seal on the axle, but we'll get the smoke machine out and we'll plug it into our line and see if we can find a leak on it. So we got our smoke machine hooked up. We're going to put a little smoke on it. And there you can see the smoke coming out of that seal. I already checked the other side. It's not leaking, so there's our problem right there. See the smoke coming out? There's a seal in there that goes on the axle shaft, on the stub axle, and it seals the hub to the axle. So, because inside of the knuckle here, where the hub bolts on, is a chamber. You know, it's supposed to be sealed. The hub has a seal on it, and then the axle has a seal on it, so it seals that vacuum in there. So we need to put a seal in it. No big deal. I'm not sure how you diagnose that without a smoke machine, because they are gonna leak to some degree. Because it's not actually a perfect seal, because it's a kind of a double seal that rotates on itself. So, you know, it's gonna leak a little bit. So the only way to really know if it's leaking super bad enough to where it isn't going to pull the locking hub in, then you would have to have a smoke machine. So, but anyway, this stuff is no big deal, and it's boring, and I put a seal in there that'll seal that up. I'm sure that's the one they put a hub in, because it looked like a new hub assembly. And they might have, you know, I don't know if you should reuse those seals or not. You should probably put a new one on. So I'll pop that all apart there and put a new seal in it. That'll take care of that. And then I need to go around and find my coolant leak on this thing, because it actually dropped quite a bit. So I need to go look for some coolant. But anyway, I'll come back when I find it. So we found our leak, and it is, let's see, can we see that? Well, you can see green down there where it's leaking. So we have the wrong coolant in it, of course. They just put a thermostat in it. It doesn't appear to be leaking at the thermostat. It's plastic. The housing seems to be sealed up. Seems to be the gasket below there on the crossover, and it goes from this side over here, cylinder head, to this cylinder head over here on this side. So that means all of this has to come off to replace that. So not a 5-minute job. These aren't too bad to get off. The plenum comes off, and then we have to pull the throttle, I guess you'd call it the throttle body, or the lower intake with the throttle body in it. Pull that off and move some wiring out of the way, and pull that crossover and put some new gaskets in it, and then torque it. So guess I'll get going on it. So we need to fix that, and then we got our hub seal leaking. So looks like a pretty good job for a couple 3 hours. So we've got our new gaskets in the crossover. You can see they're running green coolant. You can see the staining over there from where it was leaking under the crossover. New gasket on that side too, new thermostat. So what happens is two of these bolts bolt this crossover down for the thermostat, and when they put a thermostat in it, it lifted that gasket and caused it to leak. So, you know, you, especially on something older, you know, when you do stuff like that, you might like the old timing covers on a small block Ford, you know, you put a water pump on them and then the timing cover starts leaking coolant where it passes through. Kind of this little bit of the same situation going on here. So yeah, it's been leaking. They've been running green coolant for a long time. They shouldn't, but I'm not going to argue with them. They have their own shop, and yeah, green down there everywhere. They know what they're doing, and I don't. That's why it's here. But anyway, we'll continue putting this thing back together. Quite a bit of carbon inside the intake here. Got it soaking right now. We're going to blast it out, and probably be a good time to put a new belt on it right about now. So I'll put a new belt on it. I got to replace the crankcase oil mist separator on it, because if it breaks coming apart, you're buying it. So anyway, it's original, so it needs to be replaced. It is a maintenance item, so we're going to replace that too while we can get in there really easy, and then we'll get to putting this thing back together. So we got our 2016 F350 all wrapped up. So what we did, we had a hub seal leaking. We got that taken care of, threw some brake pads on it, and we replaced the oil mist separator. We replaced the gaskets on the crossover between the heads underneath the thermostat. They had put a thermostat in it, and those gaskets started leaking. The throttle here, or the lower intake, pretty dirty where the EGR comes into it. There was a lot of carbon in there, so we soaked that for a couple hours and blasted all that out of there. So we're just letting it hot soak right now. We went and drove it and got it up to operating temperature, and now we're going to let it sit here under pressure and make sure we don't have any leaks going on. But anyway, essentially this thing is ready to rock and roll. So thanks, and got some other Fords to work on out there, so we'll get them in here and get going on them.